Welcome back to the Your Girl Yaz podcast, the podcast to listen to if you're a female entrepreneur who's ready to attract more fun, more money, success, friendships, and amazing clients into your business. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope I can add some more positivity into your day in this episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on the Your Girl Yaz podcast. I know I say that every time, but I feel like it's just ingrained in me. I'm just like, right. So, my angels, today I wanted to do a episode around the story of me a little bit more, and I wanted to bring you all in on the life of Yaz and just sort of share a bit more and do like a little get to know me episode, because I feel like I have, even when I speak to my friends, they're like, Yaz, you've just lived such a crazy life, and there's been a lot that's gone on, and I don't know, I feel like sometimes you just get such a small glimpse of someone's life on social media and you just don't really see the ins and outs. And you probably, if you do follow me on Instagram, see this version of me now that's traveling the world, you know, working on her laptop, really happy, in a really good place. But sorry, by the way, I've got a little bit of a sore throat today, so sorry if I sound a bit husky. I've been doing a lot of talking. This weekend I was away with all my friends. We were camping and having so much fun. So we went to a place called Double Island Point in Australia, and you have to get like 4x4s to get there, and we were camping all weekend and it was so much fun. Like, I honestly just had the loveliest time. I feel like this trip I've just like fulfilled so many of my like 22-year-old backpacker dreams and just said yes to everything, been such a social butterfly, you know, done so many trips, and I'm like, whoa, how is this my life? But yeah, that's why I wanted to do this episode and sort of share a little bit more around how I've got to this point now and the journey that I've been on, because let me tell you, it was not always like this. Like, it has taken a big old, you know, journey and lots of ups and downs, and just so many chapters of ups and downs to get to a point now where I would say I'm happy in myself. Like, I would say that I have, you know, done a lot of the inner work, taken a lot of risks, made a lot of sacrifices, in order to put myself first and, you know, get to this point in life where I truly am doing work that I'm so fulfilled in. Like, sometimes I do feel bad because I'm like, oh, I am, you know, really, really not feel bad, but, you know, when I see people around me like in 9 to 5 still and working really hard and not happy in their jobs, and, you know, I've really, really worked so hard to get to this point, and I feel very fortunate that I've had the opportunities to, you know, do the mindset coaching course and take the risks and everything. Like, I feel like it was just sort of like laid in front of me, and I was like, well, I have two options. I can either take the risk and go for it and, you know, risk losing money. So let's take you right back, because yes, right now I'm in a beautiful position. You know, I would never say things are perfect, because there's always stuff that I'm working on, learning, growing. But, you know, when I zoom out and look at my life, I just think like, oh my gosh, you know, the younger me would have dreamed of this life. So let's take you back. So as a little girl, I felt like I can just remember looking back and thinking like I just wanted other people to be happy. And I remember in school, like, you know, when it came to sports and things, I would always want other people to go first, or like other people to have a spot. And I feel like sometimes I would really like dim myself down. And I remember, you know, being quite young, and I don't know, I definitely felt like I didn't fit in sometimes. I definitely felt like I really, really, when I was younger, really wanted to fit in, and I really wanted to have all the friends. But I always just felt a bit different, which is very strange, because, you know, on paper, I did have a lovely life growing up. But when I was about 8, my parents got divorced, and it was just very rocky for a long time from there. Like, my mum was trying so hard and doing so much on her own, and, you know, trying to raise 2 kids and look after a house. And, you know, there was just so much going on, and like a lot of financial issues, like mental health. Like, there was just so much going on when we were younger. And my mum did her absolute best. Like, she is my absolute rock. Like, she is just such a special person in my life. And like, even when I was doing my little gratitude this morning and writing down what I'm grateful for, and my mum is always that thing that I just think that thing, she's always that person that I just think, wow, like, I am so grateful I've had you as a mum, because she's had so many ups and downs, and, you know, she's been through a lot in her life. And she has just come out the other side, time and time again. She's a fighter in life, and I think she has been an amazing role model that, we did have a bit of a hard upbringing, but we had each other. So I feel like me, my mum, and brother were like this little team. And I feel like it was like me and my mum, like looking after my brother a lot of the time and nurturing him. And we're very close, and we've got a really, really lovely relationship. And we've actually got the same birthday. So it's just us two. We've got the same birthday. It's July the 5th. And every year it's so funny because whenever I tell people, they're like, what are the chances of that? You've got the same birthday. So yeah, it's so crazy. But yeah, we have the most beautiful relationship. Like, he truly, truly is a lovely, lovely boy. And he's actually in Australia now. He's traveling. He's living in Perth, which I'll be going to soon. I'm on my last sort of week in Noosa now, which is, it feels good. I feel like I've had such a restful time here, and like where I'm sat now is where I used to be a nanny, which I'll take you through in a bit. But it's just such a full circle moment, like being in this place again. From this is where I started my business, and now I'm here back with it all like sort of happening and going on. So yes, going back to my story of growing up, it was very much based around love. Like, there was sometimes, we had no money. Sometimes I think my mum was she really like looked after us. Like, even though I think growing up, I've had a lot of like sort of family friends and people say when I was younger, like, I just wanted to care for people and look after everyone, and I just wanted my mum and brother to be safe and good. And yeah, my mum says that I did take on quite a lot at such a young age, and there's a lot of my childhood that I feel like I've blocked out a little bit of and sort of can't remember all the ins and outs. But yeah, it was it was an interesting upbringing, but who has a normal upbringing, right? And then there was also like growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, which was a interesting upbringing as well. And I have so much respect for the religion, but sometimes, like when I turned 18, I just sort of knew that that wasn't the path that I wanted to go down, and there was a lot that I wanted to do that didn't align with the religion. So I sort of left when I was about 16, 17. And when I was 16, whilst everyone, all my friends were like going to college, I was determined that I wanted to get in an apprenticeship. I was determined I wanted to start a new life for myself and start earning my own money and like really find my independence quite young. Like, I just didn't want to go to uni. I wasn't interested in college. I was like, I just want to get an apprenticeship. I want to earn money. And I got my first apprenticeship, and I was earning about £3 an hour at this like car apprenticeship place, right? And they wanted me to do their digital media, and I did nothing set up, no idea what they were doing. So I just come in as this 16-year-old, like trying to sort out their social media. And I remember at the same time, I feel like I've just had this entrepreneurial gene in me, because at the same time, I was trying to set up my own like clothes website called Crystal Luxe. And I was trying to find like wholesalers of clothing and then create this website and like sell things. And I just remember looking back and from that age, I was like, how can I make more money? How can I have my own business or do something entrepreneurial? I just knew that I always wanted to do something like that, which I find so funny looking back at now, because, we're nearly 9 years on from that 16-year-old girl, and she just had that like drive. She knew she wanted to do something different. And, I don't know, back then it was like, right, let's create this business called Crystal Lux. And I remember like trying to plan it all out, but it just didn't go to plan. And then whilst I was in this £3 apprenticeship, I was applying for other apprenticeships. I was like, I just need something that's, gonna really up level me and gonna build me up. And that's when I found my apprenticeship doing like sales in London and working for this tech company that work with brands like JD Sports, ASOS, Charlotte Tilbury, and they do a lot of their marketing and their ads and things like that. And I remember going to my first interview, and obviously they didn't ask my age, like it's an apprenticeship, so you can apply from 16. But I remember for my first interview, like going up to London, and I was against these two boys, and they're both in their 20s, both went to uni, and I was like fresh out of school thinking like, oh my gosh, that am I going to get this job? And I just remember going in with such confidence. I was like, yeah, I'm getting this job. Like, and then we all had to do like a presentation on someone that inspired us. And I did mine around Joe Wicks at that point, because he was someone that really inspired me with his lean in 15 and like, just he's started so much, I feel like, with the online workout space and motivating people, and it was something that I really enjoyed. So I did my presentation about him, and I remember sitting in the room thinking, like, at that point in life, it's like all or nothing. Like, it was all or nothing for me because I just wanted it so bad. I really, really wanted to start my life. Like, I just think I have a very different standpoint on life now, but I just think at that point I really wanted to grow up so fast. Like, I just wanted to start my life and have my own money and, get my driving license and go travel the world. I just, from such a young age, I was like, this is what I want. So when I got the call to say I got the job, I was like, oh my gosh, so exciting. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, it was just such an amazing feeling because I was going to be getting my qualifications in sales and, going up to London every day, which for a 16-year-old was so exciting. Like, I would get 3 trains a day to get the train to Hammersmith and then 3 trains home. So at 16, I mean, I didn't have much money at that point. Like, I was still using like my teenage Oyster card for London, and it was like 2 hours in the morning travel, 2 hours home, working 8 hours at least a day. And I loved it. Like, I really, really loved it. I just felt so excited to be in this big working world. And, you know, when all my friends were at school, well, college, and I was just like in this working world, I just felt so different. I felt like I was on such a different path. So yeah, that was just crazy. And I remember giving them my passport, and they were like, "You're 16," and I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "Oh, we didn't realize you were so young." But obviously, as an apprentice, you can be hired at 16. But yeah, I got the job. I was worried that that was going to put them off because I was so young and I was going into this big corporate world. But we were all good. We got the job. Very happy. And it was the start of my career in sales. So I actually was in sales for 6 years. So I worked in that company for a few years, and it just got to a point where the travel was so much, things had changed in the business, and I just knew that it wasn't for me, and I knew that I wanted to go traveling. So I started working a bit closer to home. I found a job like actually selling magazines, and I actually just had so much fun there. It was a good job, but it was just a lot of on the phone. And then COVID came around, and I was in that job, and I was also working in a bar to save for traveling, because I just knew I wanted to go to Australia. So I was from that age working, 8-9 hours on the phone every day, and then going and working in the local social club after work that my dad went to save up for traveling, because I just knew that I wanted to save up a good amount of money. And then COVID happened. So I had booked all my flights. I was going to be leaving in June to go traveling. And I think COVID happened in like the March, if I can remember right. So that crushed my little 19-year-old self's dreams of going and seeing the world and traveling. And COVID for me was actually such an experience. Like, I feel like I actually, although it was horrible, I actually still had quite a lot of good times, and I feel like I've really got into my fitness. I was actually doing a PT course as well at the time, which I actually never finished. Just, it was so much coursework, and it just obviously wasn't meant to be. I was meant to be doing this. So yes, I was doing a PT course. I was loving my Courtney Blacks. I was doing my everyday workouts. I was so fit in COVID. Then also like drinking and partying a lot, and that's a bit of a course of my teenage years as well. There was a lot of partying, I would say. I think a lot similar to a lot of teenagers, but for me, there was just big problems because I would have big blackouts. Like, I just couldn't. Bless me. Like, I look back now and I just have so much love for that younger version of me, because she just had so much on her shoulders from such a young age, and I feel like she felt a massive responsibility to earn money, to look after the people around her, to help out her family, like my brother, and like I've really lived my life a lot for other people and said yes to everything, and sort of not for myself, just for everyone else. And then I couldn't obviously go traveling for a while, and then I ended up, my brother got kicked out of home, and I didn't want him living the way that he was living. So I ended up actually getting a flat with him, and it ended up being quite hard. It was quite a hard time of my life because I was working then in a job in life insurance on the phone for 10 hours a day. I think it was coming out of COVID. I feel like some of it feels like a blur now. But basically, things went wrong with the flat, and I ended up having to spend like all of my life savings for traveling on the flat to keep it running, because it was just like so expensive for me at that age. And yeah, I just ended up having to sort of spend so much money to keep it all going. And it was a point where I was being a little bit disrespected, and it just was quite a hard time for me in my life. I felt like I just wanted to go travel and I couldn't do it. And then I ended up in a relationship that was really not good for me and just made me feel very insecure, very like I wasn't good enough, and I was drinking a lot. And it was just, when I look back, it was just such a hard time in my life. And I just felt really, really miserable in myself. Everything was based around drink and, sort of self sabotaging, and as well being just really unhappy in myself. And that relationship came to an end, and I just hit a breaking point where I just couldn't stay in this flat anymore, because it was just me and my brother ended up having quite a hard time in our relationship as well, because he was just not in a good place himself, and it was just all very chaotic. So then I ended up moving back home and deciding, right, I'm going to save up this time again for traveling. I ended up actually getting a really, really good job, working for a big company. And it was probably my favourite sales job. Like, such a lovely company, so much freedom. I could work from home. They did lots of big events and, lots of fun. And it was just such a nice company to work for. And that was like, okay, I just decided I'm going to move home, work really hard in this job, and save up and go traveling. And I actually got made redundant from the job just before I was going to go traveling. And yeah, it was such like an eye-opening moment where I'd saved up this money, and then I got rewarded as well with this like payout. So then I was like, right, I am 22. My flights are booked. And September 2022, I left England for the first, well, not for the first time, but went on my first like big trip with my best mate, and we had it booked to go to Thailand, Bali, Vietnam, Australia, and it was like all this big, scary, massive thing. But actually, just before I left, I went to this festival and I met this boy and ended up in a relationship just before I was going traveling. That was my last relationship, so that was nearly 3 years ago now. But it was all just very fast, and like we met and we just like fell in love instantly, and it was just, yeah, anyway. And so traveling for the first few months was interesting because I had a boyfriend at home, and I wanted to pour into that, but also I didn't know if he was going to come. He was saying that he was going to come to Australia, and it just didn't work out. So that relationship broke down. I just feel like we just didn't have the foundations, we weren't together long enough for anything to work properly. But that really, really crushed me, because I really, really, at that point in my life, I really believed that that was the person I was meant to be with. And I ended up down a little bit of a bad path traveling. I was working in a party hostel in Pai in Thailand, but I was also starting to really want to deepen my self love, and I was doing a lot of journaling. I'd actually started meditation back home in England. I was on this party life, and I feel like that was a bit of a theme. Was I was in and out of different lives. Like, I was in the sort of party scene, and then I was also trying to learn about myself, but still just drinking a lot and partying a lot, and just lots of things were just not feeling aligned. And I remember when I was in Vietnam, I was still in my relationship and things were going well. I was really happy in my travels. I was with my best mate and just having the best time. But I saw this, I was looking for a surf retreat in Bali because I knew I was going to be going to Bali. And I came across this self love retreat, and I was like, it just looked incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I need to go to this. And I just kept seeing it pop up on my TikTok. And it was about £2,500. And obviously, as a backpacker, that is a lot of money. That was, I had probably £10,000 saved. So that was a quarter of my savings for traveling. But I just kept seeing it, and I just felt this deep calling that I needed to book this retreat. And then, the time came around for the retreat, and I was working in the party hostel just before. I was probably in the worst mental state that I've ever been in. I was just drinking so much, partying so much, and I actually had like a psychedelic trip one night at a rave the hostel was running. And I remember the next day waking up and thinking, like not thinking, just having this like download, this thought that I really wanted to start a podcast. And I wrote on my notes. I remember I actually just went for a run on my own, and it was a really, really weird time. Like the next morning, I went on this run. I was still like tripping a little bit, to be honest. And I just remember I just had this like, oh my gosh, you need to start a podcast. You need to call it Your Girl Yaz. This is what you want all of your first episodes to be about. And I just remember that day, like, just wanting to eat clean foods, like, just wanting to be really natural. And, like, I felt like I was, like, shedding parts of myself. And that was sort of like my first big experience like that. It felt like a big awakening. And it was very messy and hard. And I think people think about all the spiritual stuff as, like, all floaty. But a lot of it can be very hard when you're getting honest with yourself. And, like, I just remember sort of looking in the mirror towards the end of working in this party hostel and just feeling so unhappy in myself, feeling so out of alignment with the life that I wanted, but also I was having so much fun. So it was just such a crazy time. And I knew I was flying to this self love retreat on my own. And because my friend was deciding to stay in the hostel and carry on working there. So it was going to be like, right, you're actually going off on your own now for the first time. And traveling, and like it was just really scary and all a new experience. And even at 22, I felt like I was so much older than I was. I was like, I feel like I'm so old, but the thought of going off on my own was so scary. But I did it. I left all my friends working in the hostel, and I was really emotional, and it was just such a crazy time in life. And then I remember the day before the self love retreat, I was staying at this hostel in Canggu, because the retreat was in Canggu. And in hindsight, I probably should have just got stayed in a nice room and set myself up the night before. But I was in my backpacker girl mindset, and I wanted to stay at this hostel, so I stayed in the hostel. Ended up going out with everyone and having a bit of a messy night. I was still in not a good headspace, and I remember on the way back, I got on the back of my friend's bike, and we were in a big bike accident where he collided with another bike. And when I was knocked out, I had my bag stolen. I luckily had a helmet on, so I didn't do any like damage to myself as much. It was just more like big cuts a lot up my legs and like very big open wounds. And it was such a life changing moment for me, because that moment was a big wake up call. The next day, when I sort of woke up and I had no phone, no bank cards, nothing, just literally like myself. Luckily, I hadn't taken my passport out or anything, but I just remember that was probably one of the worst nights of my life. Like, sort of, been in this big back bike accident on my own. I didn't know anyone in Bali. I just was very fresh and like, yeah, it was just very traumatizing. And I remember I finally got to sleep at about 4 in the morning, and getting woken up by the taxi driver that was there to pick me up for the retreat. And he was like, come on, we have to go. And I hadn't even packed my backpack. I had no phone. I had like bandages up my leg, and like I was just in such a bad way. And I remember just putting on this dress, packing all my clothes into this big purple backpack, and then head into this retreat, where everyone was just dressed so beautifully and like ready for their beautiful big experience, and I just come in like a ton of bricks rolling in. And one of the first things they did was ask everyone to get out their phones and download their meditation app that they have for the retreat. And I just remember bursting into tears, because I was just like, I don't have a phone, I've got nothing left. Got nothing. I had nothing at that point. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has all happened. And I was trying to see if I could go buy a phone from anywhere, or I just don't know. I was just in such a like really horrible headspace. And I just remember running to the toilet and crying, and one of the girls on the retreat coming after me like, are you okay? And I was the youngest girl on the retreat. I was 22, and there was a lot of women that were a lot older than me, and I was just in such a, oh, I just want to give that young Yaz such a big hug, because she really, really was not in a good headspace. And I just remember in the toilet thinking, well, what am I going to do? I just felt so out of my depth. I just felt like, I hadn't even told all my family that this had all happened. I had no one that I knew to tell anyone anything. But the retreat host was so lovely. Like, they lent me they had a spare phone, so was able to use that. And the girl in my room was really lovely. Like, oh, we just had the best relationship, and that we all shared rooms. And I just remember we had this like big fairy bed with like nets all around it, and one of the girls on the retreat was a nurse, so she was able to like check over my bandages and make sure I was okay. And I was just surrounded. I mean, it was a lot of people on the retreat. It was like 25 girls, so it was a big group. But I just remember feeling so surrounded by love. And in the retreat, so basically we had our like room, we had this beautiful hut like looking over the pool, and then you could like go upstairs and there was like a little netted area where you could just like sit on it and look out at the pool. And I remember I just said to my lovely roomie Steph, I was like, right, I'm just going to go up. I just need some time to myself. And we got these retreat workbooks where we were going to be writing everything in the retreat and doing a lot of the work around what we wanted to release. And I just remember sitting on that little netted area, like climbing up those stairs, sitting up there on my own and just having the biggest cry. I just let it all out. And I was like, I just hit a point where I was like, I just cannot keep doing this to myself. I can't keep self-destructing and getting myself into these situations where I wake up and I don't remember anything and I just feel so lost in myself. And it's really hard when you get to that point because you know you need to make a change, but change is so scary when that's how you've lived your life. Like when I was the party girl and I was up for everything, and I did know, though I did always know that that wasn't me. And I just remember the amount of times that when I was younger that I'd do silly things, or I'd get messages from my brother or my dad or people like, do you remember what you did last night? And or friends, and I would be like, no. And it would just give me the fear because me sober, I would never dream of doing anything to like upset anyone. Or I just feel like I would have a certain amount of drinks, which was a lot, and I would just switch, and I it just wasn't myself anymore. Like, I would get angry or upset, or just shout and like just very out of character things. And it's really hard when you actually have to get honest with yourself and realize the darker parts of yourself and no longer keep suppressing them and stay stuck in the cycle. So I just remember sitting on that little netted bit and thinking, I have pretty much lost everything to the way that I'm doing my life. Like, the relationships are starting to break down in my life. Alcohol was just like, it felt like the devil at that point. It felt like it was the one thing that was just sucking everything out of me, but also the one thing that I would do to have fun and feel like I had to do. And like the thought of not drinking felt so scary because I didn't know anyone that didn't drink. I felt like everyone around me would just have a few drinks, and that was just the sort of lifestyle back home for me. And it just felt so foreign to think about a life without alcohol because that's all I knew. But I didn't have the same relationship as other people. Like, it didn't affect them as much as it affected me. So that's why I just found it such a hard thing at that point of like, well, how come other people don't black out? How come other people don't wake up and have these texts? I think often we do think it's all us. And I just thought I was the worst person in the world. And that, I just hit that point where I just had to get really honest with myself. And I was like, well, how is my life going to carry on if I carry on down this path? And I hit a deep realization that if I carry on like this, like, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose all my friends. I'm never going to get where I want to be in life. I am going to constantly, ruin relationships and do things that make me feel really uncomfortable because that just feels really out of character for me. And it was just such a big light bulb moment for me that, like, things can't get much worse right now. Like, although you're in a beautiful retreat, you have no phone, you've got no money, you're in a country where you don't know anyone, and you're about to move to Australia, you're running out of money. Like, what do you want to do? So I was like, okay, I'm going to spend this week in the retreat fully committing to learning about myself, fully committing to actually getting honest with myself about the things that I need to let go of. And that's why I'm so passionate about my retreats now, which I'll come on to. So yeah, it was, by the way, I'm loving this episode. I'm loving just talking everyone through because it's probably nice to just hear the sort of story and like how you get to different points in your life. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So in that retreat, I shed my heart out. I cried. I got myself involved with the group, but I also spent a lot of time on my own because I just needed that time on my own to really sit with myself and learn about myself. And I was introduced to so many things like deep journaling, like shadow work. So there was a lot of yoga in the retreat, but I couldn't do it because every time I tried, it would like cut open my wounds. So I was very much focused on the healing side of it, the meditations, I really couldn't move that much. And it was actually a retreat without alcohol, which was so good for me because no one else was drinking. We went to a bar, like a beach bar, and no one else was drinking, which was really nice. And I just felt like they were all like my big sisters looking after me and making sure I was okay. And I was just in the perfect room. Like the girl that I was in a room with was very calm and, just so nice to me. So that was very special. And I'm forever grateful for that retreat. And there was this girl on the retreat that actually had just hosted her retreat, and she owned a gym in Australia in the Gold Coast, and had all these amazing ideas, and really successful. And I remember looking at her, and at the start I was so envious because she was just living this amazing life in the perspective of me, like had her own gym, was hosting her own retreats, was helping people, and I just looked at her, and at the start I was so envious. I was like, oh my gosh, I just want her life. Like, I'm in here as this backpacker with hardly any money left and nothing, and she has all of these amazing things and has her own business. And oh my gosh, I just really, at the start was so envious. And then as I started speaking to her, I was like, wow, like I just completely shifted my perspective to, well, if she's got it, then what's stopping me from building a life like that? And I was thinking, well, when I go to Australia, I would love to maybe look into my PT course again and get my PT qualifications and help people and have my own business. I was just like, oh my gosh, I could do that too. And, the podcast idea was still in my head, that I wanted my podcast. And another girl on the retreat I was asking the owners about it. I was like, if I wanted to start a podcast, like what sort of microphone would I get, or where would I start? And one of the girls on the retreat was like, you should follow this girl because she does courses around how to start a podcast. And I was like, okay, I'll follow this girl. And I reached out to her and let her know. And I said, I don't have much money right now, but I've heard about you and I've heard that you're amazing. And I just got in contact with her. She was Irish and amazing. So then I got to Australia, my loves, after this big life experience. And I had actually, like the day before I left Bali, I bought a phone because I was like, I just need a phone, like to contact people and stuff when I'm in Australia. I ended up driving an hour to get this phone, and then I got scammed. The phone was actually so bad, like it was all just replaced parts, and that was like a chunk of my last bit of money. So anyway, I got to Australia. I stayed with family friends. I remember Christmas Day, I went to Bondi Beach and met a friend that I'd met traveling, and I just felt so out of place. I felt like everyone had their big friend groups and everyone was really close, and I ended up just drinking loads again. And I ended up actually going home early because I just felt so out of place. Like I just felt like the phone that I bought kept breaking, it kept turning off. So I went to meet them not really knowing much and not knowing anyone, and I just felt like I was so lost. And yeah, I was just in such a bad headspace, and I was like, I just don't want to stay in Sydney. I just felt like the city, I just knew I needed to create my own little life in Australia. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, I started on TikTok. My phone, the phone I got from Bali, would just turn on and off all the time. Like it was so temperamental. I don't know what the word is. But anyway, I just remember going on TikTok and looking at places in Australia because I had no idea. Like, since I was so young, I just wanted to move to Australia and didn't actually know why. I just wanted to move to Australia. So when I actually got there, I was like, okay, well, where do I go? Because a lot of people say like, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. But I knew I needed something different. So I was on TikTok and then I saw Byron Bay, and 22-year-old Yaz was like, right, let's go to Byron Bay. Like, let's just try it. So I was down to like my last, I think, £800 at this point in my bank account. And I was like, well, if I don't go now, I'm going to need to get a job in Sydney. And I just didn't want to do that. So I was like, okay, it was like around near to New Year's Eve. I think it was like the 28th of December. And I just said to my family friends, it's like, I am going to get on a bus tomorrow to Byron Bay, and I'm going to book a hostel for 5 days, and I'm going to try find a job. So there I was. I got on the overnight bus with my backpack to Byron Bay from Sydney, which was about 12 hours. And I literally got off that bus, got in my hostel. One good thing about your sales, like having a career in sales, you know not to mess about. You know that, you've just got to go for it and get yourself in there. So as soon as I got to the hostel, it was probably like 7 in the morning. I asked them if they could print off all my CV, because I'd done my CV in Sydney, and I also did my RSA, which is like you need a qualification to work in bars. So I did that because I just knew, okay, that's probably going to be my best chance of getting a job. So the first thing I did was get my CV printed out, go around to all of the bars in Byron Bay and ask for a job. And I just had no after no. And, so many were just saying, like, we're full, we don't need anyone, like. And then I remember, like, one of the main bars there was like, yeah, can you start tonight? And I was like, yeah. So that was the start of my little bar job career in Byron Bay. And after a few days, I found this room that I could rent for a month, which was like the rest of my money. But I was like, well, I need somewhere to live. So that was that. I got my little room for a month. I worked in the bar. I was getting paid weekly, which is so good about Australia. I just definitely think that should be more like that in the UK, because it was just so good. Okay, like I'm earning money straight away. So things just fall into place, and they fell into place. And I bought myself a little bike called Lola, and I love Lola so much, my little blue bike. And I just remember riding home from work and thinking, I have no money right now. I don't have a dollar to my name, but I'm so happy. Like, I'm so happy because I'm living a life for me, and I'm like riding around on this little bike, living in this surfy town that's just mad and like so funny. And then I ended up, because I could only stay in that room for a month, moving in with a granny in Byron Bay, and she was a proper like hippie granny. She used to work in Vietnam being a topless waiter in the bars in the war, and she was just so funny. She was crazy. And I remember at that point I was earning money, so I was like, right, I'm gonna do my podcast course, even though I don't have a lot of money. And I did my podcast course, and I remember telling her that I was gonna start a podcast, and she was like, oh my gosh, like. And I remember I bought my first microphone, and this was through a few months of working in the bar. I bought a laptop off Facebook Marketplace for like £500. I feel like when you have like a little like call in, it all just works out. I was like, okay, I like got some money together because I saw this, and it's still the laptop I've got today. She is slowing down. I should invest in a new laptop soon, but she's very sentimental to me because she's my first. She started my business with me. She's my girl. But yeah, very sentimental to me. And I remember this like laptop came up on Facebook Marketplace from this lady that had loads of laptops for her business, and she was like, oh, I just don't use it. So it was like £500, it was $1,000. And I remember saving up all my tips and everything from the bar to buy this laptop, and like getting this money together. And it just felt so exciting because I was like, because starting a podcast, I remember investing in the course and not really thinking that then through the course she's like, right, well, you need to get a microphone, you need to get a laptop to record on, obviously. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't really think this through. I don't have anything. I've just got my backpack. But yes, so I saved up my pennies, invested in the laptop, invested in my microphone, did the course to learn. And I remember trying to record my first episode like on the floor, and I've got a video of it, like me just like, and it felt so scary and so scary to learn everything. But I'm so happy that I did the course myself, because I know how to edit all my podcasts, and my podcast manager is amazing. I love her so much. But it's just also nice to have the knowledge, and like I learned from the start how to do everything myself, and I started it all myself from no help, no savings, nothing. And then whilst I was also working in the bar, why we have this lovely business now, is one of my best friends came across a company called the Coaching Masters, and she was like, Yaz, like, oh my gosh, they do amazing coaching courses. And she was like, I think you would be amazing as a coach helping other girls. And I'd already been on quite a big sort of life journey, I feel like, from this retreat and turning my life around. And I also decided to stop drinking alcohol, which was so scary for me because no one around me didn't drink alcohol. Everyone around me drank alcohol. So I just felt like, okay, I'm going to be this outsider. And I was working in a bar, which just sounds so funny, doesn't it? Working in a bar and not drinking alcohol. But I just knew that that's what I needed. So I got my head down. I stopped drinking alcohol. I invested in my podcast course. And I actually had a voice at the retreat saying, like, if you stop drinking, your whole life is going to change. Like, you have two options. You either carry on drinking, carry on this lifestyle, and things are going to go very downhill, or you stop drinking and your life's going to turn around. So for me, it just felt that simple. I felt like, okay, after the Christmas period, once I was in Byron, once I was settled, I just was like, right, that's it, I'm cutting it out. And I listened to lots of books and audiobooks. That's a big thing I recommend is like whenever you want to do something like that feels scary, research and learn from people that have done it. Like research and learn from people who have been in your shoes. It definitely really helps you feel like you're not alone. And, you know, for me, I think it's called The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober. That book changed my life because it made me feel like, okay, I'm not on my own. I'm not such a bad person. Like, it makes me emotional because I used to just beat myself up so much and feel like I was the worst person in the world because I had this like drinking problem where I just would black out and not remember stuff and always take it too far. So that was a big old journey, my loves, around the alcohol. And then I found my coaching course. And I remember having a call with them. And there was this, like, they had like this mock course that you could pay £10 a month for and learn the foundations. And I just fell in love with it. I just was like, oh my gosh, like I could start to picture myself having this life where I was helping people. And after going through such a big life transformation where I was gone from like hating myself, party girl, you know, just doing everything for other people to actually starting to really like myself and starting to learn how to prioritize myself. I was like, well, imagine if I could help other girls do this. Imagine if there's other girls out there that are really struggling, feeling like they're stuck in a life that they're really unhappy in. And imagine if I can help them get to a point where they do fall in love with themselves. And that was it for me. I just had that moment where I was like, this is what I need to be doing with my life. And yeah, I invested in the course. That was another, like the same thing on a payment plan as the podcast course, so that I could afford it with my job in the bar. And that was that. I was working in the bar all night till 4 in the morning, cycling home from work. Then I would be sat in cafes in the day studying and pouring all my time into studying and learning, and then a bit of time at the beach. But yeah, I just was like in go mode. I was like, this is what I want to do. And then, funnily enough, the girl who I did my podcast course with was also a business coach. And I remember with the podcast course, I had one free session around like business stuff, and I had this session with her, and I told her that this is what I wanted to do and I wanted to help people. And she was like, let's make it happen. And I had that one person that believed in me. And after a while of the bar work, I just was feeling so, I just hated it, to be honest. I hated the late nights. I hated being around everyone drinking. I hated the sticky floors and people throwing up everywhere. It just was not for me anymore. And I started looking at other jobs, and there's a website called Backpackers Job Board. And one of my friends in Byron was a nanny, and I thought you had to have loads of qualifications to be a nanny, but apparently you don't. So I was like, okay, let's go for it. So I started applying for jobs, and there was some that just weren't right. They didn't align. And then there was this one job in Noosa, where I am now. And it was to be a nanny and look after these two girls that were 8 and 10. And they were really active and really fun. And it was to come live with their mum and have my own little cabin and, you know, experience a new place. And although I loved Byron, I felt like it was my time, and this opportunity just felt so amazing. And although it felt so scary to leave, I was ready. I was ready to start a new chapter, and I just wasn't happy in Byron anymore. I think sometimes you know when you've outgrown something, and you know where I was living, the environment, the pub, the people. I just felt like I just didn't find my people there, and I just felt like, I don't know, yeah, it wasn't for me anymore. And that's okay. So I moved here, and I remember, well, I stopped drinking for a long time. And then I remember my last night in Byron, I ended up having a big night out, and things all just went, yeah, not great. And then I came here the next day, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just starting a whole new life. And I just knew when I got here that that was my time, that I was going to be able to set up my business. And, you know, when the kids were at school, that was my time to work on this business and get going. And I remember then having a chat with a business coach and her sort of sharing the pricing. And I was sort of thinking, well, that is not going to be sustainable with the amount of money I'm earning as a nanny. So I started looking for other jobs. So I was working in a cafe, I was working as a nanny, setting up my business, studying. I remember I got fully qualified when I got here. And then it was just go time. There was nothing holding me back anymore. Like, I couldn't hide behind the fact of studying. It was like, you just have to go for it. So the best thing I did was invest in a business coach, because, you know, for me at that point, I just think it's so important to have support. Like, if you have a dream, invest in the best from the start and you will become the best. Like, you know, you learn from people, and you learn in your own way as well. Like, I worked with a business coach for 6 months and it was amazing. But after that, I was ready to sort of go on my own way. And I remember, you know, there was points where I was here and I was doing so much and I got really burnt out and had to take some time off. And then I feel like when I went back to England, sorry, I'm skipping ahead here. But anyway, so with my business coach, she was like, right, who do you want to help? And at that point, I really wanted to do self-love coaching and help people that had been through a similar journey as me. So I was starting to post online, which felt really scary. I remember I turned my normal Instagram account into my mindset coaching account, and it was so scary because I was like, oh my gosh, everyone from all my raves and my parties and that life are going to see me starting to post about self-love and meditation. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do it, it's too scary. But you have to, you just, if you've got a dream, you have to put yourself out there. And as scary as it is, like, that's why it was so good having support from the start. And that's why I'm so big on providing the support for my girls, because there's nothing like having someone in your corner that truly gets where you're at and is truly willing to listen and help you get where you want to be. And that is the theme of my life, is wanting to help people. And, you know, even when I was younger, there's loads of photos of me like dressed as a nurse, and I always just wanted to help people. So it's funny how that comes into a full circle, and my whole job is centered around helping people, and I just love it so much. So yeah, I went through a lot of different, like, my own limiting beliefs and a lot of fears around doing it. And a lot of times where that first 6 months was brutal, because I was investing all this money and doing everything, but nothing felt like it was really working. I was coaching people for free and for very small amounts. And then I got my first client, my first full paying client, because, and she's still a client today. We've got such a beautiful relationship because one of my best mates recommended her to come to me, and it felt so scary. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got my first client. I was like, ah! But I'll never forget that feeling. It was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is really happening after all of this hard work and all of me showing up. I'd also built this whole self-love course, and I'd spent so much time doing this course, right? You know, I spent £500 on software to build it, and it just felt like I was just like trying to sell it so much, and I wasn't really having many people wanting it. And actually 2 girls from my self-love retreat actually signed up, which was so special. But it was just one of those at the start of my business where everything felt like it wasn't really happening. And then I remember going off on my own. I actually, my visa ran out. I was like, okay, ready to go back to England, because I either had that choice to do my farm work for 3 months, but I actually just loved my nanny job. And I was like, I just want to stay here and then I'll go home. And then Australia brought out a new rule where from last July you can come for another 2 years. You can get 3 years in Australia if you're English without farm work. Take a breath, Yaz. So that's what I did. I come back to England because I knew that I could come back to Australia if I wanted to, where I am again now. And it was really heartbreaking, actually, because I had attracted the loveliest friend group here. I remember I had a real light bulb moment where I had this big white party as a leaving party, and we hired a boat, and no one was drinking. Like, everyone, like me, was just like well, they weren't all sober, but no one was drinking. Everyone was having a really, really good time, and we watched the sunset. And yeah, it was just one of those days. It was so special. And I was looking around and thinking, like, I have all of these people that love me for me and not the party as, and like, don't need me to just be this like big crazy person. They just want to be my friend for me. And it was a real light bulb moment for me that I could just be myself and I didn't have to pretend to be anyone else anymore. And yeah, it was a real special moment in my life. And it was actually heartbreaking leaving the kids and the family here, because we built such a lovely connection. But it was my time to go home. I'd been away for a year and a half, and in that time, you know, traveled to so many places, set up a business, moved so many times, like made different friend groups, and I was just ready for a bit of home time. But when I got home, I found it really hard because I was a completely different person. I didn't fit in my old life anymore. I'd gone from the party girl to this girl who's a mindset coach, and putting all this stuff out there and but I just knew that this was my new path. And I'm grateful for my old friends that love me for this version of me, and I'm grateful for all of the amazing new friends I made. And I remember 3 months into being home, I got a credit card for the first time, and I booked a flight to Thailand on a credit card because I was like, I can't do this anymore, I hate it. I was working in jobs to support my business, and just nothing felt like it was right. And I remember getting this credit card and thinking, right, if this goes through, then that means I'm going to go and it's the right decision. And if it doesn't go through, because I hadn't used the credit card yet, so I didn't know if it worked, then that means that I'm meant to stay in England. Anyway, it bloody went through, didn't it? And then all of a sudden I was like, well, that wasn't very smart, was it? Because we're not earning much money, and you're not in a position to just go to Thailand. And it just wasn't my time. It wasn't the right time for me to go to Thailand. So anyway, I took the L. I, paid off that £400 credit card with the money I was working I got another job, and, I was working on my business. And last year was a challenging one because I was starting to build my business. Well, not starting, but I was on my right, let's get clients, but also working full time. And I just still felt like, I was just on this chapter of just really, really wanting things to go well. And last year as well, I did an ultra marathon for mental health because someone that I knew committed suicide, and it was just really, really awful. And I just wanted to do something for mental health. And I did an ultra marathon for Mind Charity, and then I went to Ibiza the next day on my own on a solo trip because it was 20 quid for a flight to Ibiza. So I was like, why not? Let's go. And I remember using my suitcase at the airport as a crutch, literally like a walking stick, because I could barely walk from this ultra marathon. And, in Ibiza, I had this big realization that I can't carry on doing everything. I was working full time in a job in London and at home, and I was running my business, doing self love events. I was doing so much, and this is a theme in my life that I've actually learned a lot of lessons around recently, around trying to do everything and say yes to everything. And I was trying to do everything, and it got to a point where I was like, no, we just can't carry on like this. So the next day, I actually left Ibiza early. I literally woke up and I was like, I need to go home. I need to quit my job. I'd only been in this job for 3 months, and, in sales, quitting after 3 months is not very good, is it? It's not really, staying with the company vibes. But I just knew for me, I had to do it for me. So I quit the job and I went all in with my business, even though it felt scary and I didn't feel like I was ready, and I didn't feel like I had enough money. I remember ringing my dad and saying, Dad, I'm coming home from Ibiza. Please, can you pick me up from the train station? I'll get the train home from the airport. And the whole flight home, I was holding in all these tears. I was so stressed. I was so worried. I just felt so like I can't carry on doing everything, and feeling like I'm burnt out, because it catches up with you, burnout. You think for a long time you can carry on doing everything and that you're fine, but something's got to give, and eventually, if you're not prioritizing yourself, it is you. So I had to accept that. So I got in my dad's big van and I just burst into tears, and I just cried my little eyes out. This was only last July, and I was like, Dad, I just can't keep doing everything. I'm so sad, and I just don't know what to do, but I can't carry on with this job. And he was like, it's going to be all right, Yaz, it's going to be all right. If you need help, I can help you out a little bit. You know, like, I don't want you to just go down a dark path. I don't want you to burn out of your mental health, because that's the way I felt like it was going. So I quit the job and I went all in with my business, and everything changed. I felt like I did my first retreat. I was attracting all of these amazing clients, and everything. I feel like the universe really looks after you when you decide to just give it everything and go all in. And that's why I'm so keen with my clients to just help them. And last year I actually fully went into working with all girls that run businesses, because I just believe there's so many amazing girls that just when you start a business, you have to, that you need the mindset support. And that's where I love helping girls the most, is because I'm not just helping you with your mindset, I'm helping you build your dream business. And in that case, be able to get out of the 9 to 5 life if you're not happy in it, be able to really create a life of your dreams that you feel so happy in and that absolutely lights you up. So that was amazing. Did my first retreat. I was doing these amazing events. I did my last one before I left in December. I'm actually going to be doing lots more events when I come back to England soon. I'm so excited, actually. But yeah, and then I knew that my heart knew that I wanted to go travel again. Like, I just knew that my travel chapter wasn't over. I knew I wasn't just ready to settle in England, although I'd built the most amazing life in England in my year home. I actually forgot to mention that when I went home the first time, I surprised all of my family. So I came home and no one knew I was coming home, which was one of the most amazing experiences, but also really hard because nothing was really set up for me to come home. So I just sort of was thrown in the deep end and like back into English winter, and it was just hard. But coming back this time, I'm excited because I spent a year building such a nice life in the UK, making such amazing friends, holding my events, the retreats, and just like really meeting people that just aligned with the version of me now. I'm such a big believer that in your 20s you change so much. So you're going to have the friends that are in it for the long run and that love you in all of your different chapters, but you're also going to make lots of new friends that evolve with the version of you that you're becoming. And that's what I felt like I was going through. I made loads of new friends, and yeah, I'm excited to go home this time. So I left England in January and I travelled around Thailand for 7 weeks. I then went to Lombok in Indonesia. Then I went to like the Indonesian islands. So I went to like Nusa Lembongan, Nusa Penida. And then I went to Bali for a fitness retreat that one of my friends from the first self-love retreat was running. So that was a full circle moment, getting to see her and just be invested in everything she was doing. And then I went back to Lombok because one of my other, so I had a best mate come out to Thailand, then I had my brother come out, then I had my cousin come out to Thailand, and then my auntie and uncle. So that was a very social 7 weeks of my life. And then in Lombok, I had my first bit of time to like myself and just like, focusing again and experiencing Lombok. That is one of my favorite places. I've actually got a little chili tattoo on my arm for Lombok because it means small, not spicy. It just means spicy. Anyway, my love, sorry. I'm just really, there's a lot of life to get through here, guys. And then I went to my fitness retreat, and then I went back to Lombok, and me and my friend were only meant to be there for a week, but we ended up staying for nearly 3 weeks in Lombok because we just got in a bubble and we loved it there so much. And we were so aligned. We were getting room upgrades. We got upgraded to this villa, and then we were just staying in the most beautiful places and really living like our CEO energy dreams. And then we went back to Bali, and then I flew to Australia. And Oz for me this time was the first time I've like had time to slow down. And where I am now is where I used to be a nanny, and it's a quiet life here. Noosa's quiet and it's beautiful. And on the weekends, it has been so full. Like, my friends have just like planned so much. So every weekend, I've just been like going to Byron, going to the Gold Coast. Last weekend, I went to DI, Double Island Point. So we did a big camping trip. This weekend, I've got the races. And then next week, I fly to Perth and start my 3 week van trip where I'm going to be working and traveling in my van, which is going to be so amazing. And then I'll be spending 2 weeks in Perth and spending my birthday weekend in Perth and just spend time with my brother because we've got the same birthday, guys. And then I'll be flying home and spending lots of time with my friends and family, and then hosting my second retreat in September in Spain. And to be honest, for the first time in my life after that, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you if I'm going to be staying in England, if I'm going to be coming back to Australia, if I'm going to like set up somewhere else. But to be honest, I'm excited. I just feel like, guys, it has been crazy chapters of my life, and I just definitely feel like I'm always going to be a person that lives a full life, full of love and friendship, because that's what's most important to me, is creating a life full of love and helping people and feeling excited about the life I'm living. So yes, I'm so excited, and there's lots of amazing things to come in business. Like, I know that this is just the start, and I was actually having a big journal this morning around, it's like people think that success just happens. By the way, I feel like I say success really weird. Success. But anyway, I was thinking about it the other day, but that's the only way I know how to say it, success. But I think people have this like warped perception of success that it just happens overnight, that, you start a business and then all of a sudden you have 10,000 followers and, you're having all of your dream clients. But it takes time. And I just think, you work and work for probably years, and then you have that one light bulb moment, or that one moment where everything shifts and you get that life of your dreams. But it's so important to enjoy the journey. Like, I'm having fun. I love it. I love my life that I've built. Like the fact that I get to work on my laptop, I get to go anywhere in the world, I can travel when I want. I'm running retreats around the world where I want. And yeah, that sounds all lovely. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. Like, no one sees me spending hours and hours and hours, investing in courses for the retreat and like speaking to who I want as guests and planning it over and over again to make sure that it just is going to be the most amazing transformative experience for everyone. And same with my coaching. Like, I do a lot of the deeper work myself to look at, okay, like, who do I truly want to help, how can I really help them. And I'm always going to be investing in myself more to help my clients learn the best and help them have the best experiences in life and business. And then the podcast, like, I have my dream of having my own podcast studio, and it's going to be all pink and beautiful and like open, and I can have guests come in and come have a cup of tea and have podcast episodes together, and have my own studio where I can, I just want my own like big space where I can have the podcast area, I can have my like work area, and then I can have like the room's quite big so I can have some yoga mats and host like in-person self-love events, and like just have that space where people can come to me, because I love the in-person stuff as well. Like, I really love getting people together. But I know that that's going to happen at some point, and it's important to look at what's good and important for you in each chapter. And this chapter has been about making memories and enjoying where I'm at in business. And it's not about like, really, it hasn't been about really growing the business. It was more about, enjoying my life, enjoying what I've built, enjoying working with my clients. And, I love the theme of Grace Beverly's podcast, like, are you working hard or barely working? Because you're not going to be in the working hard chapter. It's not realistic to constantly be in a working hard chapter, because you need to learn from experiences and also getting out there and having fun. Like, this chapter, I've learned so much in experiences and not just in the books. Like, I've read a lot of books, but I've also been learning from experiences and, being in different situations. And there's different situations I'm in now where I get a lot more anxiety, like if I know it's not right for me. And yeah, I've just learned so much about myself. So if I had a glass of champers right now, or a nice, nice drink, I would say cheers to that chapter of Yaz, and cheers to getting to this point. It's almost like a we made it point of like, okay, well, I've built the foundations for my life, and now I'm only going to keep helping more people and growing and, pouring into myself so that I can help more people. So this just feels like the start, and I'm so excited to see what's next. I'm very much an open book. But yeah, I wanted to do an episode where you guys can hear a bit more about my story and, the path of getting to this point of the freedom and of the life and the fun. And I do get messages like, you're just living the most amazing life, and I'm jealous. But it's like, well, girl, just look at the journey. Like, it hasn't always been easy, and but the one thing I have stayed true to is my dreams, and like not letting anyone get in the way of me creating my dream life. And it doesn't always happen the way you expect it. But if you're clear that actually, no, I deserve that, I'm gonna, whatever happens, I'm gonna be the one in control, then you will get there. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing, because like, just as it's important to have that belief in yourself, it's important to invest in yourself and find people that are going to help you. So that's why I have lots of offerings now. Like, you tell me what you want. If you want to come to a retreat, you can sign up to my retreat waitlist. You can apply to come to my next retreat. There's an application form in my bio, and you can come to a retreat. They're all just going to be amazing, and I'm going to keep running them for all my female entrepreneurs. And then if you want that one-to-one mentorship, like what I was talking about with my business coach, of like really, really deeper, getting clear on what you want and having that support system to help you not just like create a business, but create the life of your dreams, then go get to the show notes. There's the link to apply. If you feel like you'd like group support right now, I created the CEO Club. Like, I've spent the last 2 years getting really clear on the different offerings, and it doesn't just happen overnight. Like, it's taken 2 years. I've tried group courses and they didn't work for me at that point. And it's only now that I've created my community. And that I made it really affordable. It's £33 a month, and you get one mindset training a month. You get a 45-minute community call. Every week I'm posting motivation, journaling prompts, and I just wanted everyone to have the chance to get the mindset support. So you can join the CEO Club now. You literally click the link, sign up, and then you get a link to get added into the group chat, get all of the calls, and it's so exciting. I love the CEO Club. Like, girls, like, I have attracted the most supportive community. Every single time someone joins, everyone is clapping, following them, asking for support, and I sort of did it as well so everyone can use each other's services, and it's so special. So you can join the CEO Club. And then the last thing is an Empower Hour. If you want to book an Empower Hour, they're £150, and it's like an introduction into the mindset world. It's starting to map out actually what life you want and looking at if there's any blocks in the way now, creating you like a fast track action plan to start taking action and get where you want to be now. So highly recommend that as well. If you're like, okay, I want to invest in myself, I don't know where to start, I need that one-to-one support, book an Empower Hour. Like, I promise you, they are so special, and they just get you to that next step of like, okay, I know what I need to do now in order to get to that next step. Jumping over, it's like a leapfrog, just jumping over to that next step that you feel like you've been putting yourself off from getting to. So I love them as well, because there's just such a nice way for you to get an introduction into the mindset world. But my loves, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you loved this episode. I hope you loved hearing a little bit more around me. If you haven't already, it would be so special to me if you could leave a I accidentally put my 5-star hand up then. A 5-star review on Spotify or on YouTube if you can subscribe and you can watch the videos there. I'm sending you all my love, and I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will catch up with you all very soon. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode on the Your Girl Yaz podcast. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 a.m. UK time, so I look forward to seeing you back here. I also have a free higher self meditation course for you to learn to meditate, to relax, to switch off, that's available for you to access now in the show notes. And also, don't forget to follow the podcast wherever you're listening, rate, leave us a review. I appreciate it way more than you could ever know. Thank you so much again for listening. If you've got any feedback of the podcast, my Instagram at Yasmin Lily Hilsdon is also linked in the show notes, and I really appreciate it.